Big fluff.
Jack the Wolf O'Malley meet Callum Drift, commander of the ELF.
The ELF?
Turns out Jack here didn't know what he was doing. Somebody hired him to find the complex, and incredibly, he did.
Who?
He doesn't know.
I don't know.
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't.
They always know something. Sometimes you just gotta shake it out of them.
I'm not gonna like you. I can tell right away. Out of everyone here, I like you the least.
Garcia!
What the heck?
Yeah, Chief. This guy's not cooperating.
Oh. Shall we do the thing?
I'm afraid we're gonna have to.
Cal, let's talk about this for a minute.
There's nothing to talk about. You can't trust this guy. He's on the list.
What list?
You know damn well what list.
Look, I'm not on any watch list. I know for a fact that... Wait a minute. You don't mean...
Yes, that list. You're on it. I checked. NL4.
Are you telling me this clown is a level 4 naughty lister?
A level 4 naughty lister?
Oh, is that funny to you?
Hey everybody, I'm Joel Murphy.
And I'm Andy McIntyre.
And this is Silver Linings Playback, the podcast where we watch maligned movies and we find their silver linings.
And it's our last new episode of calendar year 2024.
Crazy.
What a year it's been. Peaks and valleys. Some friends became enemies. Some enemies became friends.
That was all Davenport.
And as we always... Yeah, it's all Davenport. All of this is Davenport.
He became our friend and enemy and friend again. I think we came back around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we kicked him out of the group for breaking his neck.
Yeah, well, that's his fault. And he never called us. And we're justified.
Never
and it
once.
made you and I stronger. A lot of people thought we were going to break up.
Yes.
But turning on Davenport really made us stronger.
Really brought us together and made us a stronger pair.
Yeah.
But it's also Christmas time. And our last Christmas movie of the year, this is in the running for some of our fastest turnaround from when it was in release to air for the podcast. But we're watching Red One.
Well, yeah.
Red One.
Yes, we were watching Red One. And it's not just us, though, because this movie is wild in that it was in theaters like a month ago. And it's one of the quickest turnaround times for a movie to go from theaters to streaming, where it's now playing on Amazon Prime and also still in some theaters. So, you know, all of this is uncharted. This movie cost something between like $200 and $250 million, and it has not made that money back.
And it's all on screen, baby.
In that they paid the money to The Rock and Chris Evans and like all the above the line talent. Yes, it is all on screen. They spent no money on visual effects or story, but like they paid those actors. They
paid The Rock and they paid Chris Evans.
Yes, those are true things. But yeah, it's Red One. Definitely, I think The Rock had high hopes for this movie and thought it was really gonna do big business. And
yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a hilarious thing. I'm just gonna start with this because I don't know where to put this, but there's a pretty great quote from The Rock where he apparently was filming this movie and he got a chance to see Oppenheimer. You know, they were filming it during the Barbenheimer summer, and he took a little break to watch Oppenheimer. And he watched Oppenheimer in IMAX in the same theater, apparently, that Kristofer Nolan watches in, and sat in the same seat that Kristofer Nolan sits in. And his thought, The Rock's takeaway from seeing Oppenheimer was, man, if we can release Red One in IMAX, it'll be a game changer.
I was midway through shooting Red One. I had an opportunity to go watch Oppenheimer, and I watched it in the IMAX theater where Kristofer Nolan watches and screens his movies, him and Emma, his wife. And I even asked, let me sit where Chris is sitting. So they said, Chris sits here to enjoy the movie. So I sat where Chris sat. I watched Oppenheimer, it was amazing. But I was thinking, holy shit, this thing, Red One on this screen with this technology, it's gonna be game over. So I remember texting Jake and I sent him a picture, first of my bare chest, and then sent him a picture of the screen. And we realized that we just had a great conversation afterwards about just how cool it's going to be. It's going to be very cool.
And he was right all along.
Yeah, he was right. And I think if I'm pretty sure that is what Nolan wanted us to take away from Oppenheimer.
Is that a soulless cash grab, paint by numbers action Christmas movie would change the game should it get released in IMAX?
Yes, and it did. The game has never been more different than it is now, a month after releasing.
It's
Red One.
We're gonna mark time at one point. BRO and RO before Red One and Red One. That's gonna be the new demarcation.
I did hear that right when the movie was released. I heard The Rock stood out in front of the theater and said, "I have become Rock, layeth of smacketh down."
I thought he said Haku Mashente.
What a wonderful phrase.
Scorpion King.
Yeah. Don't they say that in this movie? Isn't that about what they say to summon the reindeer in this movie?
It's some nonsense.
Yeah. That's actually what I thought you were doing, was the nonsense that they say in this movie.
Oh no, I was doing the Scorpion King.
Yeah, it's the same. Also, by the way, just putting this on here because I'm just noting things at this point. We haven't even started proper, but named the polar bear Garcia when The Rock's ex-wife still continues to produce all these movies and her last name is Garcia. Just noting it. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know that there's something there.
That is a thing that is true.
Yeah.
It is a true thing. I don't know if it means anything. I don't know if it means nothing at all.
It doesn't. Yeah. And I guess as good as place as any to say that that polar bear looked bad.
Yeah, it moved weird. It's CGI. They have yet to make a convincing looking, realistic CGI talking animal.
Yeah, the mouths always look weird. And what's weird about this one is because, I mean, you watch, they keep making like the live action Lion King live action. I don't know what those words mean when everything is CG, but they keep making those, like the Mufasa movie just came out. But I think this one had two things against it. Because one, it just doesn't look right when animals talk and their mouths move. And then the other problem with this is that they also then just like took, the body of a polar bear, but then tried to puppet animate it like a human. And I don't think it was intended, like just visually, it does not look correct at any point.
No, the armored polar bears from the absolutely rife for doing on this podcast Golden Compass movie looked better than Garcia.
Yeah, Garcia looked very weird. And I found it
like the model
upsetting.
itself, like it looked good when it didn't move, but then anytime it did anything else, like it did this little like, that didn't look good.
Yeah, which like, I mean, that's its own, issue of, they like, there's separate things in that, like they probably just found, in a file folder, like their a skin, and then like there was their job to animate it.
Yeah. And then weirdly, like Krampus is mostly makeup effects.
Right. Yeah. Krampus, who is that guy from Game of Thrones, in just like
Tormund from Game of Thrones.
It's Tormund from Game of Thrones, just in some Krampus makeup.
Fun fact, Kristofer Hivju is his real name. That's actually what he looks like, and he was wearing makeup for Game of Thrones.
That's true. It took him hours to de-Krampus him.
To de-Krampus him. Yes. I got de-Krampused once. It's not a good time.
Yeah. What's funny is I got Krampused one time, which I guess we could talk about.
You did get Krampus
on this show. Because when is it ever going to come up again? You and I, once you played Santa Claus and I played Krampus in a beer commercial that I'm going to guess aired in Japan because I never saw it. So.
Yeah, it was a weird time. It was a fun day.
It was a fun day. Yeah.
We were paired with some scantily clad women, not doing a bit. This actually happened.
Yeah, it was a beard thing. And yeah, we were, I don't even, do you even remember what the premise was? I don't remember what the story was.
Well, I remember that there was a beer called Belschnickel Stout.
That sounds right.
And Belschnickel is an alternate name for Krampus.
Mm-hmm.
And you were Krampus and you were stealing the beer from the attractive women.
Sure. Why not?
And then I Santed my way to help them.
Okay. I'll believe it. That's more than I remember. So sure. Yeah.
I mean, all I know is the photo of me dressed as Santa, you dressed as Krampus, and the two women show up every year at around November 10th.
Yep. Yeah. It comes up in our time hops. And then I think we text each other and are like, hey, remember that this happened? And it feels like it didn't.
And we go, yeah,
but it did.
That was a decade ago.
It was a decade ago, which is insane. Also, shout out to Tony Marion, who's probably not listening to this, but who directed that. So,
Yeah. Shout out to Tony Marion. Good dude. Yeah. Tony Marion.
No, Tony. He's a buddy, and he, is the reason that we did that. So.
Yep. Yeah. I'm amazed that of all the Christmas movies we've done, I guess this is the first time Krampus has shown up. So that makes sense.
Right. Which Krampus, I mean, in this decade sense, continuing just a meteoric rise in pop culture is Krampus. And an interesting thing with this movie, because I feel like this movie had a cake and eat it too kind of thing, where it wanted Krampus in it because it knew that Krampus was popular, but it didn't want to make Krampus the villain because I think that would have been too obvious. So it went with, what was it? I'm afraid to say her name because she'll appear. But was it Gryla or Grilla? Grilla, yeah. But yeah, so it went with the Icelandic Christmas witch instead.
Yes, and much like Joe Hendry, say her name and she appears.
Yeah, she is the Joe Hendry
of the Red One verse.
Yeah, exactly.
Also blonde and attractive.
Mm-hmm. And we believe in her.
Also British.
Yeah.
Or no, Kiernan Shipka's not British. She's American.
No, she's American. She's ours. We get to claim her.
Yeah. She's ours. Dang it. Get your paws off her, you damn dirty Brits.
I think everyone in this movie is American, right? I mean, Evans is American. The Rock. We're.
Well, Kristofer Hivju, I'm pretty sure, is Scandinavian.
What are you basing that
on? Everything.
Oh, okay.
Literally everything.
You know what that tracks?
Literally the facts.
You know what? You got me there.
That is what I'm going to base it on.
Yeah.
For a change.
Mm-hmm.
This movie must have been the easiest pitch. We're going to do an actioner where they save Santa. Done. Easy. What they didn't say is it's going to be the blandest movie possible.
They did not say that. But yeah,
but that's what they gave us.
I figure cards on the table. I'll say this because I said this to you when we were talking about it before we were recording. I feel like pretty solid act one. I think this movie sets itself up well of okay, I get what we're doing. It's a Christmas movie. Chris Evans' character, you very successfully establish him as kind of a dirtbag, but he's still kind of charming. So we like him. He's got a kid. We understand who this character is and what's going on. We understand the world of Santa. And I think it is just, as cliched as this sounds to say, I think it is just third act problems. It's just, I think they set everything up pretty well. And then once they have to start delivering, it really kind of falls down.
Yeah, I think kidnapping Santa and having to rescue him before Christmas may have been enough.
Yeah.
I don't know that they needed the snow globe prison gimmick where, again, we were chatting before the podcast about villains who are right. And Grilla just wanted to put all the naughty listers in prison.
Yeah.
It's not how democracy works, but.
Well, this movie does have a problem in that it can't really quite square it wants to pull from these different Santa mythologies. And that is a thing that I've always been fascinated with about Santa Claus is that, here in America, we kind of have the well, if you're bad, you get coal. And again, they want to have the naughty list. They want to say that Chris Evans is on it. But this idea of like, well, but the villain is wrong because Santa believes in everyone. It's like, well, Santa does punish people even in America. It's just in these other cultures, like where Krampus and where Grilla and you know, like Zwarte Pete and like all of these kind of, there's usually like a sidekick who's the bad cop to Santa's good cop who, you know, kidnaps the children, like puts them in a sack and hauls them away. Like it's a heavier hand than the American version. And so it wants this person to be the villain, but it has a hard time squaring how to like explain that of like, well, there is a naughty list and you're on it and you're gonna be punished. And it was Krampus's idea, but Santa still uses it, but Krampus went too far. Like, you know what I mean? Where it's just is always kind of like, it's too squishy. Like it's not a clear right and wrong that's easy to justify.
Right. Because I don't know that like so my father famously actually got coal for Christmas one year because he was misbehaving.
Oh,
apparently.
He was 46.
Yeah. And we just pelted him with coal for him. He was never the same. No. But no, as a child, he legitimately got coal from his parents for Christmas because he wasn't behaving. So Edwin McIntyre, hardcore grandpa, rest in peace. Did not mess around. But that's the only, and all of his siblings corroborated it that it did indeed happen. And that's the only instance in the history that of humankind that I've ever heard of anyone actually getting coal. So, you know, like the naughty list existed, but it doesn't really matter in terms of Santa. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just
fuzzy.
Yeah. I think that's
vague.
My thing is like that part felt kind of fuzzy. I like the idea and I like pulling in this stuff because I think the weirder mythological stuff is really fun. I will say this movie has a mythological problem too, and that it's like, you know, Santa is real and that's fine. And you're going to play with like, these are different Santa beliefs. I thought putting the headless horseman in it was just like, well, what are we doing? What in the C.S. Lewis are we doing right now of like, oh, so just everything that's mythological.
Yeah. Like what's real and like, where is the line?
Yeah.
And this movie didn't care.
No, it just threw something in because it seemed visually cool. But I thought putting the headless horseman was a very bad idea for the world building of just didn't really make sense. It
being tangentially related to another holiday thing, maybe like it wasn't just like a Dracula.
They should have put a Dracula. I think there should have been Draculas.
There should have been a Dracula and maybe a Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And maybe a Boo-Berry.
By the way, can I just take a moment to talk about lamp shading and how it annoys me in movies? Because this movie does it, and it does a pretty textbook example. And I just want to say to movies, if they're listening, that I'm not a fan of this, which is this exact move that Chris Evans does, which is like, you know, you get the explanation where Lucy Liu is like very earnestly explaining like, well, you know, at this time of night, Santa Claus was kidnapped. And then they know that kind of is a tough sell. So this is the lamp shading where then they have Chris Evans go, you're telling me that Santa Claus is real and he was kidnapped? I hate that. I hate that so much in movies.
Saint Nicholas, the jolly old elf himself, was kidnapped. Get out of town.
I say if you're going to do it, like you can't do it for things that we know are ridiculous because it feels like a cop out. This is the world of your movie. Just make it the world of your movie. Make people accept it. I think if you're going to do that kind of lampshading in movies, you should do it for like normal stuff. Like you're telling me that if I don't get 8 hours sleep, I'm exhausted the next day. What?
You're going to tell me that if I keep driving my automobile, when it gets to empty, that it's just gonna stop?
You're telling me
that's crazy.
That if I walk into this bank with a ski mask on and I point a gun at the teller and say, give me all your money or I'm gonna shoot you, that the cops will show up and stop me?
You're going to tell me that if I don't eat food, that I'm going to die of starvation? I don't know if I buy that, Lucy Lou.
Wait a second. You're telling me that when I close my eyes, the world continues to exist?
You're going to tell me that when I was a kid and my dad used to put a blanket over his head, he didn't just disappear and then reappear immediately afterwards? I don't know if I can buy that.
You're telling me there wasn't a secret staircase behind my sofa that my dad was able to descend, but none of the rest of us could use?
And it was even more fun when he had his canoe.
Sometimes he would take the elevator. You're telling me there was no elevator. We also, again, we should probably at this point, maybe you got it from the clip at the beginning, set up the fact that sometimes Chris Evans is from Brooklyn in this movie, and sometimes he's not.
Famously, New England Chris Evans doesn't do a Boston accent that he, I think, grew up with. No.
Yeah, he just
full on random, like, hey, like more of a more of a New York City area accent than he used playing famously Queens native or famously Brooklyn native Steve Rogers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, Steve Rogers has just a classic like newscaster American accent.
Yeah, has that non-regional diction.
But for some reason, this guy who could have been from anywhere, just every once in a while when he remembers to do it, just goes like, wait a second here, which is also weird.
Oh, because
we also get a flashback at the beginning to him as a kid, and the kid does not talk like that either. So
no, the kid has also very like standard non-regional American diction.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then as I was like, yo, way.
I don't know what all we need to talk about with this movie, but one thing that I definitely want to note before we pivot that we do have to talk about, because I'm blaming The Rock. I am squarely blaming The Rock for what I'm about to say. Because he produced this movie. This is like his guy that did Jumanji. They're teaming up to do this. Like, this is very much a Rock production. Why is everyone in this movie jacked? Why is Santa jacked? Why are the snowmen jacked? There is not an overweight person in this entire movie. There's not a fat person in this whole movie. Like, everyone is just...
The polar bear is carrying 4% body fat.
Right, exactly. You have polar bears and snowmen, two famously like portly entities, and they're all like, everyone in this lifts, bro. And I don't know why we did that. Like, why was Santa so buff?
Yeah, why did J.K. Simmons get unnecessarily yoked to do this movie?
Yeah, he bulked up to play Santa Claus so that we could get a scene where he's bench pressing.
And not the way every other actor in the history of mankind has bulked up to play Santa Claus.
Not the way that Christian Bale would have done it, you know?
No, Christian Bale would have been a slovenly 340 in no time.
He would have died of like a heart attack 3/4 of the way through filming it because of his commitment to being Santa Claus.
Yeah.
I never forget that he did, I forget the exact order, because he did like skinny movie, you know, bulky movie, skinny movie. So I forget the exact order, but I think it was...
Well, he did Batman Begins, The Machinist, Dark Knight.
That was it. Okay, yeah. So he did The Machinist, and I remember hearing a story that they were worried because they were like, you're too small. You got to bulk up for the Dark Knight. And he was like, how much do you want me to bulk up? And they were like, as much as you can, because you don't fit in the costumes. We already did all these costumes and you don't fit in them. And they were like, as much as you can bulk up in like a matter of months. So he bulked up so much that he was too yoked for the costumes. Like, that's how insane Christian Bale is.
No, he went from like 210 in Batman Begins down to like legit, I think like 140 to play the Machinist, and then back up to like 230 for the Dark Knight.
Right. Which is why, how dare you, Hollywood, try to remake American Psycho, because no one is more an American Psycho than Christian Bale, and you will never top his performance.
Welsh Christian Bale.
Look, he might not
the
be
most
super
American Psycho of all.
But he's the most psycho of all. And that movie's perfect, and they shouldn't try to remake it. There's no reason to do it.
No, there's no way you can make that movie better than. I don't know if the movie's perfect, but I don't think you could do it any better. If that
I think
makes
that's
sense.
a fair way to say it. It's just that's the definitive version, and it and Fight Club are two movies that are better than the books, and so you're not going to improve on it. Don't remake Fight Club either. Don't try. I know you're thinking about it,
Nope.
and don't do it.
I will say with Fight Club that maybe there's an alternate take on it that might work as a movie, but it's not going to be better than the Fincher movie.
No, and even
there's nothing. Everything that Mary Harron said about American Psycho, she put on that screen, and it doesn't need to go anywhere.
and also Bret Easton Ellis kind of sucks, so you don't need to keep
Well, yeah.
propping him up either.
Yeah. Back to Red One. Just quick plot, which we kind of said. Santa's jacked. Santa gets kidnapped. Chris Evans is at fault. Chris Evans gets roped into helping find him. And then it turns out that Grilla is trying to kidnap all of the naughty people. And that's bad because reasons. And then they save the day.
Also, you know what? Justice for Grilla, however you say her name, because here's why she was right. I'm going to make the case that we should have just let her do her thing. Because the way the movie presents it, so Chris Evans and his son get put in snow globes as like a test. She's trying to test out if it works, and she tests it on them because they're trying to help catch her. So they end up in the snow globes. And what happens is that's the dark night of the soul. If you're doing Save the Cat or whatever, like it's the moment where Chris Evans now has to atone. And he's like, you know what? But pal, look, hey pal, now I'm remembering that I'm from. So look here, I got to tell you something. I
gotta tell you something, son of mine.
Yeah, but he
Listen up here real good here.
but he has to explain to him like, look, you shouldn't be in here. You're a sweet boy, but the reason that you're in here is because you're trying to be like me, and I'm a real piece of shit, and I have failed you, and I'm a bad dad, and I've been selfish, and that's why I'm in here, and I deserve to be in here, and I'm gonna try to do better because I don't want to be a piece of shit anymore. And when he does that, the snow globe shatters and he's freed. So I don't think the snow globes are that bad.
You know what? I'm with you.
They sound like they work.
Yeah, it sounds like he atoned.
Yeah.
You know, it really does. So justice for Grilla.
And also, like, the other guy that we see get put in a snow globe, he's like parking in a handicapped spot. And he's just like really terrible with everyone. And he's like Aaron Abramson or whatever, because he's the first person on the list. And like they show him for 5 seconds and he's a cartoonishly evil man. So maybe they should put them all in the snow globes and see if, you know, we're like things are not going great. Maybe people need to be in snow globes. That's all I'm saying.
I'm saying, you know, we haven't tried snow globes.
Yeah. Hey, look, what do I know? I'm just some guy. I'm just a regular Chinook. I don't know nothing from nothing, but I'm just saying maybe snow globes.
Since you say it like that, I mean, how can you disagree?
Hey, I could do this all night. Oh, it would have been better. Oh. I'm just saying, like, those Marvel movies are great, but imagine if he said, I could do this all night. Oh, it would have been better.
Hey,
like I did your mom. Oh.
Oh, that's America's ass right there. Hey,
it's better.
Bada bing, bada boom.
It's better. I think it is better.
That he should have had just a Bugs Bunny-esque thick Brooklyn accent.
Mm-hmm. I think it's clear Andy and I have been doing an impression of Bugs Bunny this entire time.
Well, yes. Very famous. We nailed it.
Hey, it's duck season here. Oh,
Wabbit season. Hey,
what's up, Doc?
I think I took a wrong turn at Albuquerque.
Oh man.
But yeah, this movie is like the first. There's a lot of good moments, and when we actually pivot, we'll get to the silver linings. But it's so bland and so like soulless.
Well, yeah. And I think that's what I was trying to say before is that I think it starts strong. I think like we will have silver linings. I think there was good stuff, but it's just like once the pieces start falling into place. Actually, you know what? I want to focus in because there's a specific scene that I kind of felt like to me watching it, it's where it lost me. And maybe it's not, maybe other people feel differently, but at least like for my money, I thought when they got to Krampus's lair, that was kind of where I thought the movie started to stumble. And I think it's worth like just looking at a little bit, because they're going into the lair. The Rock says not to touch anything. Chris Evans immediately tries to steal some gold, which triggers the thing, and they all show up. And what happens, and I think this is what should have happened. And then I think what happens after this is where I don't think it really worked, was there's a moment where Krampus tells Chris Evans, you can leave, get out of here. There's the door, but I'm going to keep the Rock, and he's going to be in prison because he broke in here and he's an elf and he's not supposed to be here. Great. I think for what you're doing with this movie, that is the exact thing that should happen at that moment. And then what should have then happened is Chris Evans should have started to leave, like been like, it's not my problem. Oh, and he's just like starts to walk away, is at that threshold. There's literally a threshold that they walk through to be in Krampus's lair, is about to be free, and just kind of like sighs and turns around and has to go back and save the Rock. That's what should have happened. That's the like absolute 100%. Slam dunk. But instead, he never starts to leave. He just stays. And then for some reason, he gets the Rock to challenge Krampus to a slap fight. And then that's dumb. And then they cheat to win the slap fight by using Rock'em Sock'em robots, which is dumb. And then they escape while being pursued by Krampus's team, which is dumb. And then at the end of the movie, for no reason, Krampus shows up to help them, even though they have in no way earned his respect or help.
Yeah.
So that to me
it's dumb.
Is the embodiment of where we went wrong.
Yeah. And I mean, I think like roping Krampus into the plot, because it could have just been, that Krampus says, you know what, Rock, I'll let you out if you can beat me in Krampus Schlapp. And then the Rock's like, well, I don't have any other choices. And then you don't realize that Chris Evans has come back, or nobody, we know the audience, but they don't know. And he puts the cheater bracelet on, and then Krampus gets schlapped, and then they escape, and it's smarter and fine. And then Krampus is like, that is the first time anyone beat me in Krampus Schlapp. We are now friends. And then it makes sense.
Yeah. That is better than what was presented.
It's not good.
Yeah, but it's hitting the beats. I think you just this movie needed to paint by numbers because it was painting by numbers, and then it just forgot the numbers and just kept painting. And then nothing made sense.
It's like, oh, was that a 2? I don't remember.
Yeah, and then the third act is just a mess. And I don't know. We lose Kieran Shipka, who's like one of the best things about the movie, in favor of a not very well rendered CG witch.
Oh, the CG giant gorilla witch is the worst CGI in the whole movie.
Yeah, it's quite terrible. And then it's just a bad CG sky fight where poorly rendered witch fights poorly rendered snow reindeer. And then
remember how fun the fight on the Bifrost Bridge was in Thor Ragnarok? Imagine that, but bad.
Yeah, imagine if that wasn't fun.
Yeah, imagine if that was dumb and bad.
Right.
And it looked stupid.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we got.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think those are kind of the broad strokes of the problem. Also, maybe we should take a moment to talk about all the people who were wasted in this movie, because I think, and maybe we can argue about who is and isn't completely wasted, but like J.K. Simmons for sure wasted in this movie as Santa Claus. In some ways, I almost want to make it a silver lining, because I feel like he collected probably a huge paycheck to be unconscious for 90% of this movie, and then to show up at the end and get to do one cool sequence. But he does nothing the whole movie. Mark Evan Jackson, gonna give a shout out to him in the opening scene.
In one scene.
He's in the opening scene as like Chris Evans' uncle or something. I forget. He's someone related to child Chris Evans.
I think it's his uncle,
but he doesn't get in.
Bonnie Hunt.
Yeah. As Mrs. Claus, she doesn't do anything. I think Do you think they used Nick Kroll well? I'll put him in the kind of medium category.
I mean, he was fine.
Yeah. Mary Elizabeth Ellis from
Mary Elizabeth Ellis.
Yeah, from It's Always Sunny, plays mom, a classic, really
Plays
talented,
shrewish mom.
Yeah, talented, hilarious actress reduced to playing unnamed mom who exists as a wet blanket to be like, he really wants you to go to that pageant. I think that might be her only line, and she just keeps saying it over and over again. Huge waste of her. But I mean, arguably a waste of Lucy Liu. I think she doesn't really get much to do.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think those are the big names. A waste of Tormund from Game of Thrones.
I liked Krampus.
Okay, all right. See, we can disagree.
I don't know that it was wasted. I mean, I think it could have been done better.
Well, I think that's what I'm saying is like, he's great casting. I wish it had been executed a little bit better. But yeah, that's probably the hits.
I think that's it. I think those are.
Yeah, I think are you ready to pivot?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's pivot. Let's pivot it up.
Because I'll say, just to do the flip side, since we just did all those, the exact right use of The Rock and Chris Evans. I mean, they're both doing what they should be doing in this movie, and were cast well.
They definitely understood the assignment, and I love both of them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, same. And
big fans.
Here's the funny thing about Chris Evans too, is like absolutely an amazing Captain America, and I can't imagine anyone else being a better Captain America, but he's so much better at being an asshole. Like, that is what he was meant to do.
Well, I mean, look at him. He just like he looks like a piece, like he looks like, and I've heard he's like an absolute sweetheart, one of the nicest guys.
Yeah.
But like, he gives like rich kid who people hang out with because he's rich vibes, as well as almost anyone ever.
I mean, Knives Out will be the definitive greatest casting that you ever could have had for him. He was,
and that movie I love. I mean, Rian Johnson, one of my favorite directors. That is pretty high up in my favorite Rian Johnson movies. Yep. And he might be the best part of that movie.
I think he is. Like, I would agree that he is. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's just so slimy. I think the best role that Chris Evans ever played was as Lucas Lee in Scott Pilgrim.
Mm-hmm. Also great. Also a dick.
When they're like, I'm a big fan. Why wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
Gold.
It's a good use of it. Also, just so for the second week in a row, we can mention this movie. He's phenomenal in Not Another Teen Movie.
Yeah.
Where he's like not quite a dick, but he's just very smug in that movie.
Yes. But he plays that like smug teen that gets redeemed.
Yes.
Very well.
But yeah, that's one of my favorite roles of his too. Sincerely. I love that movie.
Yeah.
If you've never seen Not Another Teen Movie, we should do it on this show because it's perfect fodder for this show. But that movie, I like it.
Yeah, we'll shoehorn it in at some point.
We'll have Nicole Bilder back on the show to watch Not Another Teen Movie.
Chris Evans and The Rock is perfect. I want to talk about this aspect of the movie just to know what your thoughts are, because even though we're kind of have pivoted, how'd you feel about the shrinking?
I feel nothing about the shrinking, if I'm being honest. Like, I didn't enjoy it as a choice, but I was like, okay, I see, like, because he's an elf, so he gets small. It seemed like an interesting kind of reveal about The Rock that I think there's a version of it that could have been really funny, but I don't think it is funny in the movie. It's just there. And I really didn't think it worked or didn't work. How about you?
Exactly the same, but it was like, it was a choice. Like, I don't know that it made the movie better, but it was kind of like the first time it kind of got a laugh, like, oh, of course, because he's an elf.
Yeah.
It's, I know we pivoted, but I keep getting reminded of things that kind of didn't work. But like the making the toys real thing, I think they should have left it out.
See, that's interesting.
Or done it more.
Okay, that's what I was going to say, is that I feel like it falls into the same category, but of the two ideas, I like being able to make toys real better. Because I'm like, that for some reason makes sense to me. It's like you're using toys because it's Santa Claus and that's fun. But yeah, they needed to use it way more. And then there needed to be like Chris Evans not understanding how it worked and maybe animating the wrong thing. But like even the Rock'em Sock'em Robots thing could have worked in a different scene if it like that was Chris Evans thinking he had a good idea, but it was actually not really a great idea.
I think you needed Chris Evans to actually try to realify something.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that was money left on the table.
Or, I mean, there's like a running joke about how he wants to make Wonder Woman real, which like, I don't know if you have the rights to keep name dropping Wonder Woman, you worked something out. So like, why not have the doll just be a giant doll that comes to like, he tries to make Wonder Woman real. And then she just like is a giant plastic doll that beats people up or something.
Why not? Right?
Yeah. Just
like, what harm is that doing?
I think that's like, again, we pivoted, but I think a lot of this movie is they made choices. And I, like you said, and like we're saying, I don't know if they're good or bad, but they were choices. But the problem with the movie is it's not interested in exploring the choices that it made. Of like, okay, this is the world. Santa Claus is jacked. Why is Santa Claus jacked? Why can toys come to life? What are you going to do with that? You also did a thing where there's shape-shifting, and like the whole shape-shifting thing was only used to just have Santa be kidnapped at the North Pole. Was like the big reveal, but like there was no shenanigans with that. There was no like The Rock was just able to figure out exactly who was pretending to be shape-shifting, which is not fun. He should be tricked by someone.
Yeah, or tricked until the last possible second.
Right. Yeah, like there needs to be some tension. If he can just immediately see through it. Like I think that was the thing. The Rock, okay, again, we pivoted. But I think a big flaw in the movie is The Rock is phenomenally good at his job at all times. But still Santa Claus got kidnapped.
Yep.
And that's a problem. Like, if he's so good at his job, why did Santa get kidnapped?
And they set up that it should have been the day after The Rock retired.
See, that would have made sense. Yeah, if he wasn't there and then he felt really guilty. And that's what, like, oh, God, I thought they'd be fine without me. And the first day. Yeah, exactly. Like.
And then the person that replaced him could have been one of the ogres shapeshifting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's already better.
Right.
To also repivot, I guess. Sorry.
Just had a moment. If the ogres can shapeshift, why didn't one of them shapeshift into Santa Claus and be like, hey, you got me. You saved me. I'm back now. Let's go do Christmas. Like, why not trick them into thinking they saved Santa Claus?
I think it'd been like snow globes. Everybody wants snow globes. And the mask of Spider-Man.
Yeah. The same rule as Chris Evans of like J.K. Simmons, perfectly fine Santa Claus. But ultimately, I want to see him shouting about pictures of Spider-Man. That's the best use of him.
Yeah. That I don't know that anyone has been more perfectly cast in a role ever than J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, he's so good at it that they just recast him in the Tom Holland
the MCU.
Yeah, they were like, well, why would we try to do anything else?
Like, why bother?
And
let's just do this.
The Andrew Garfield ones just avoided it. They're like, there is no J. Jonah Jameson. No one has found.
Since we can't get him, we're not going to get anyone else.
Yeah. So that's how good he is at that role.
And I'm sure other actors would be good J. Jonah Jamesons.
But
no, that's the best.
They wouldn't be better. That's the thing. They might be good. They wouldn't be better.
Yeah. I did like that. I did like the plot point that he was like being kidnapped at the North Pole. Like, I thought that was like,
sure. Yeah.
I like that was slow played well. And like, it felt like a reveal and it not like an of course, like almost everything else in the movie did.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I didn't see that coming and I thought that was a fun. And then it makes sense. Like, I think that was the thing too. It felt well thought out of like, well, her plan is to do the run. So of course she'd be at the North Pole. Like, she's going to take over.
They needed to they needed the toy manufacturing ability to like make all the snow globes and
Yeah, it was actually a
all of
very logical twist, you know.
I mean, watching Krampus slap dudes in the face, that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fun in a vacuum, but I wish that scene worked better.
Yeah, and I mean, like professional slapping or whatever that thing is the dumbest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Like where they just like literally do the Krampus as an actual professional event is the dumbest thing in the world. But in a movie, I like it.
I will also say, again, I don't know why they were buff, but I liked the snowmen. I liked the idea of them.
That action scene was solid. Yeah.
It was a good action scene. I like that the snowmen existed at the beach, that like the heat didn't bother them. And then the reveal that like you rip their noses off is how you stop them. Cause that, you know, that's lore. Like the nose brought them to life or whatever. We did a sexy snowman movie that was a scarf that brought him to life. So sure. I like that. And yeah,
so I think the important question is who's sexier? Is it Ted from Schitt's Creek, or is it Dustin Milligan, or is it the snowmen in this movie?
Well, I mean, it's a false dichotomy because the real choice is Michael Keaton and Jack Frost. He was the sexiest snowman.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, this no, like this movie is mindless fun, but it's not good.
Yeah. I'd say that's all accurate.
And I would say it's worth a watch.
Yeah.
Like, why not? It's fun enough it's enjoyable.
And it's like, if you have kids will probably enjoy this, even though it's not that good.
Yeah. And it's, you know, again, The Rock is great. Chris Evans is great. J.K. Simmons is great. Kiernan Shipka is great. A lot of good acting.
Yeah. And also, look, if you're going to see it, go to the theater where Christopher Nolan watches IMAX movies, and you sit in Christopher Nolan's chair. And if he's there, you tell him to get up. And you say, I'm sitting here because this is a game changer, and it's better than your movie. And you make him leave. And then while Christopher Nolan cries in the lobby, you watch Red One in IMAX.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
If you smell what The Rock is cooking. It's Christmas cookies.
Silver Linings Playback is a production of HoboTrashcan.com. If you enjoyed the show, please rate or review it on Apple Podcasts. Hear more great shows on the Peak Sloth Podcast Network.